All right, well, good evening. Thanks for joining us this sunny afternoon, early evening. It's absolutely beautiful outside. And so we appreciate you taking the time to join us, especially after working a whole day and having school and whatever else is going on in a busy day. We just really appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. We're going to be spending some time this evening talking about the Bozeman Municipal Watershed Fuel Reduction Project, and specifically the implementation activities that are planned for this upcoming summer. If you are not able, if you know some folks who are not able to watch tonight, that's okay. This is being recorded, and the entire presentation will be available online for later viewing opportunities. So on that note, we'll go ahead and get started. Real quick for introductions, I'm Corey Llewellyn. I'm the district ranger for the Bozeman Ranger District with the Custer-Gallatin National Forest. And this evening, you'll hear from a few of us. You'll also hear from Caleb Schreiber. Caleb is our acting fire management officer for the west zone of the Custer-Gallatin National Forest. Many of you will remember Caleb from our Bridger Foothills fire this past fall. Then also we'll hear from the city of Bozeman, Brian Heaston, city engineer. They'll introduce themselves as they come up later, but you'll see a few different faces this evening. So on that note, I'm going to go real quickly over kind of our planned agenda. Hopefully you're able to see the presentation online as well at the same time. We really want to cover a few different things this evening. Again, as I already said, we really want to focus on the implementation activities for this upcoming summer. And those activities are kind of broken into three different categories. It's all fuels reduction work. The first area is going to be our prescribed fire, prescribed burn program. The next category is going to be thinning of smaller diameter trees. And then the last category is thinning in larger diameter trees. And then we're gonna discuss a little bit about what you can expect to see this summer, type of impacts, type of equipment, things of that nature. And then we're going to close it out with some Q&A and whatever questions you may have. On that note, we do have staff that is currently monitoring the chat box. And so as we're presenting, if you see anything that you have questions about, or you hear something that you want a little more information about, please do put your comments and your questions directly in that chat box. And we've got people monitoring that, and we'll feed that forward to whoever's presenting and do our best to answer at that moment. So first, I would like to cover just a little bit about the purpose and need and a little bit of the project history, kind of how we got here. I don't really plan on spending too much time about the history. I just really want to dive into mostly about what you're going to see this summer. But we know that this project is new for quite a few folks who are maybe new to the community, and thought it would be important to cover a few things about the purpose and need and kind of why we're here and how we got here. So the purpose and need of this fuel reduction project is first and foremost about protecting your municipal watershed. We're going to be addressing built up accumulated hazardous fuels in the landscape, and by fuels specifically, timber and wood, things that are going to burn, that ignite and fire. And by implementing that project, by reducing some of the fuels, the intent really is to try to reduce the impacts of a high severity fire. The impacts from that would also then have the potential to impact the city of Bozeman intake structures, putting ash and sediment, debris flow, log jams, things of that nature, and then ultimately also impacting the city of Bozeman water treatment plant. Additional benefits and purpose and need of this project is to increase more defensible space in the wildland urban interface. For those of you who are familiar with the project area, there's a lot of development directly adjacent to national forests, and so these treatments will provide some more defensible space. And then these treatments will also provide for increased safety for our firefighters and for the public. In the event of a fire, we'll have safer opportunities to engage and to evacuate public in the fire area. The purpose and need was really built off of three independent watershed studies that were conducted back in the early 2000s. And all three of those studies, they focused on the type of impacts on the watershed, the type of threats on the water itself. And all three came to the same conclusion that the greatest risk to our watershed would be from impacts from a high severe fire. And so that really helped kind of push and generate the start of our analysis of our project and our program development of this particular project. And even more from a fundamental perspective, that's all based off of a relationship that we have with the city of Bozeman. The Forest Service and the city, we manage the watersheds collectively for the greater good of the municipal watershed to provide for clean, clear, predictable water. And so those watershed assessments in the early 2000s really daylighted that we had a concern that needed to be addressed to try to protect our watershed. So from those studies, the Forest Service started our environmental analysis process. We did public scoping, we had a proposed action, we developed alternatives. We went through a pretty robust analysis process, engaging with the community to develop a proposed action and a project to still meet the purpose and need while trying to minimize impacts on the landscape. We signed that decision in the early 2012 area, 2013. We were litigated. We had two separate complaints that were filed that generated litigation, and currently we are no longer under an injunction with the federal court, and so we are moving forward with implementation. So I just wanted to be really clear that we did go through the environmental analysis process, a very full public scoping comment period, and we are now at the point where we're moving forward with implementation. So real quick, as an overview, as you can see on the screen, is a map of a few different things. The yellow that you see, that genuinely reflects the type of treatments that we have planned on national forest land. In the bottom part, you'll see kind of a smaller, kind of more darker orange symbology, and that represents the fuel reduction projects on the city of Bozeman land. And then outside of that yellow area, you'll see kind of more of a pink type of color that actually represents the past fires, the wildfires that we've had on this landscape. And as you can see, we've had fire pretty much all the way around the municipal watershed over the last 10 to 20 years. So the threat and the risk of wildfire is incredibly real. We all live in Montana, we all know that. And for those of us who were here last fall, we most certainly saw that firsthand with the Bridger Foothills fire. We have had fire in this landscape within the municipal watershed, and we always take suppression activities, and we were able to keep those fires small. And as you can see, we've had some really large fires just adjacent to the project area. So a little bit more on existing conditions and kind of what's currently on the landscape. For those of you who've been in the Highlight and Bozeman Creek area, and those are kind of the primary focused area of our treatments, you'll see a lot of kind of heavy, dense stands. Because of the lack of fire, we have a lot of accumulated fuels that have built up. We do have insect and disease issues with mountain pine beetle and other spruce budworm, things of that nature. And so really we have some pretty unhealthy conditions on the landscape. And the stands are so dense that we don't really have a lot of opportunities to safely engage for suppression activities if a wildfire starts to burn very actively. The fires we've had in the past, we're able to get to them very quickly, and we're able to keep them small, but under the right or the wrong conditions, that fire could go very quickly. And with the type of conditions that we have on the landscape, it would be very challenging for us to safely engage with our firefighters, as well as trying to keep the public safe. The landscape is also in some other priority areas. As I mentioned already, all of it's within the wildland-urban interface. And then it's also a priority area with the state of Montana with its forest health strategy throughout the state. And again, a priority area for the city of Bozeman. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and dive into some more details about actual implementation plan for this upcoming summer. We're going to describe a little bit about prescribed fire and then dive into some small diameter thinning. And so Caleb Schreiber is our fire management officer here on the district, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about those projects.
I'm Caleb Schreiber. I'm the Zone Fire Management Officer for the West Zone of the Custer-Gallatin National Forest. And I'm going to talk about our fuels reduction activities in the Bozeman Municipal Watershed Project. First, I'm going to talk about prescribed fire activities. We've got prescribed burning. We've got 3 different types of prescribed burning that we're going to be doing on the project. Start off, I'm going to talk about understory burning. And slide here quick. Understory burning, we do have some understory burning planned for this year, beginning possibly soon, and then sometime between now and June 16th, and then possibly again maybe in the fall of this year. It just depends on weather windows. And when I say weather windows, really prescribed fire windows. What I mean by that is it's like a window and that it's framed in. We have certain parameters that we have to follow that are very specific to meeting our objectives and ensuring that fire stays contained within our containment lines. And those types of things are our weather, the actual fuel conditions on the ground, and then also our resource availability for our firefighters and those folks that are available to come out and ensure containment. Understory burning specifically, as you saw in the video, quick video there, is really about removing that understory vegetation, maintaining a healthy forest, keeping our canopy base heights up. And canopy base heights is just that lowest live limb on that vegetation so that we don't have fires that transition into crown fires. And then additionally, we have some pile burning planned that will generally take place over the winter months or more specifically early fall or early spring conditions, fall or early spring conditions. When we have some snow on the ground or have very wet conditions. And we do this generally to just remove those heavier accumulations of fuels where we can't safely do like an understory type burn because there's too many fuels. And then we also have broadcast burning. Broadcast burning is really, it's the difference between broadcast burning and understory burning is somewhat nuanced. And a lot of our burns that we have planned, particularly on the east side of the Bozeman Creek area, are kind of a mix of broadcast burning and understory burning. Understory burning has tree canopy, broadcast burning typically does not have tree canopy associated with it. That's the biggest difference between the two. And so we have areas that are intermixed where we have intermixed broadcast burning and understory. Specifically, our burn units are located primarily east of Bozeman Creek on those kind of west-facing aspects there. Those units are probably a couple years out before we're likely to get into them. And then we have some units, one particularly near the Langer campground area. That's the one that we're looking to hit possibly this spring or this fall. And then we have some other units that we may be looking at as secondary treatments that we might do after doing our small diameter thinning or some of our larger diameter thinning treatments. And so the ones that we have as primary treatments are orange on the map, and the ones that might be secondary treatments are gray hashed on the map, and we don't have those necessarily specifically identified yet. They'll be based on the conditions after our primary treatment as to whether or not we will do the secondary treatment. And the primary vegetation types of those are generally going to be in our drier sites of Douglas fir. In our thinning, smaller diameter thinning, we're looking at a couple of different types of treatments in there as well. We've got lop and scatter treatments in areas where we are looking to do prescribed fire, broadcast, or underburns. That lop and scatter is just, we're going to remove some of that large or smaller diameter material and just cut it into small pieces so it lays relatively flat on the ground. And then through a later burn, we will remove that material. Most of what you're going to see out there with our smaller diameter stuff is going to be piling. So we'll be hand piling that. We'll be using hand crews to perform the treatments. Right now, this summer's treatments are planned primarily starting in the Leverage Gulch area and then also in the Mosier Trailhead area. We have, I believe, 5 units, and we'll look at those on that. Here in just a second. So why are we doing those treatments? It's really, again, like I talked about, raising that canopy base height, that lowest live limbs in there. We want to remove those ladder fuels that move fire from the surface up into the canopies. Canopy fires are very difficult, if not impossible, to suppress with our hand resources and our, they tend to be much more severe and cause more resource damage. The surface fires are good. We generally want those that work out very well and provide benefits. So if we can manipulate the forest conditions to provide that more historical condition, it's good. So additionally, increasing the space between trees also helps facilitate that. And reducing, again, as I said, reducing that severe and extensive wildfire. And specifically, we're looking to retain those healthier trees. And I just wanted to touch also, we're not going to be cutting any limber pine or white bark pine. Those are 5-needle pines. Those are specifically, they are sensitive species, and we want to retain those. And these thinning treatments, when we leave those trees in there, actually provide more opportunity for those sensitive species and helps improve that condition as well. And the same thing goes with the aspen treatment, or aspen in there as well. And then I believe here's our map. So you can see the northern treatments, those are our Leverage Gulch treatments. There's 2 units up there. Those will primarily be lump and scatter. There is pockets of hand piling in there, and that will begin in June. And then we have treatments down by Mosier. Those are the ones at the very bottom of the unit. There's 2 units down there. And there's one kind of up in the top there also. Overall, the treatments will begin in June. Each unit will take a week to 2 weeks to complete. They may be working on multiple units at a time, and we should be done with those all by August. I think with that, I think Corey's going to get up and talk about some additional treatments that we have.
All right. So the other type of treatment that we briefly talked about earlier would be field reduction work, where we're going to thin some larger diameter trees. And the tool that we're going to use to implement that is going to be kind of more of your traditional logging equipment. And so this is where you're going to see heavy equipment. You're going to see a bollard buncher, and we're going to show pictures of that in a moment. And that's where they're going to go in there for the exact same purpose and need, and for the same reasons that Caleb talked about with a smaller diameter thinning. The same thing, we're trying to open up the canopy. We talked about those ladder fuels. We're trying to reduce ladder fuels on the surface. And by ladder fuels, just like a ladder that you climb, fire can climb up those fuels and get into the canopy. And so we're specifically trying to minimize the ability for that to happen. And so the thinning and the larger diameter trees will have the same type of benefit, trying to open up those type of treatments. You can see here on the map, and I know this may be a little hard. There's a lot of yellow on there, and the yellow, those are the treatments that we have planned for our thinning in the larger stands of timber. And pretty much all of our treatments, whether they're thinning in the larger trees and the smaller trees, the small diameter thinning or prescribed fire, all of our treatments were strategically designed and laid out on the landscape to try to meet the purpose and need. And so in general, our treatments really focus the Mosier Ridge all the way down into the National Forest boundary, kind of on, then going down both sides of the ridge. And so kind of going down towards the highlight side, down towards Leverage and Hodgman Creek, and of course on the east side of the Mosier Ridge into the Bozeman Creek drainage. And so we do have some units planned in the Bozeman Creek area. and a couple that are a little bit closer to highlight, but the majority of our large diameter thinning is planned along that Mosier Ridge down towards National Forest land. At this point, we really don't anticipate seeing any active logging start this summer. There's a potential for it to start late fall, but in order to start some of that work, the contractor will first be doing a variety of road work. They're going to be doing some pre-haul maintenance on the roads. They're going to be cleaning ditches. They're going to be doing grading, making sure the roads are up to the right level for supporting heavy equipment. And there's also some temporary roads that they're going to be building to help support the implementation of the project. And some of those temporary roads come off of Mosier Ridge down towards the forest boundary in Hodgman Creek area. All of our temporary roads that we're going to build are going to be completely decommissioned. They're going to be on the landscape maybe for 1 to 3 years. The contract is not expected to go any more than 5 years. And so as soon as the logging activities are done, those roads will be completely decommissioned. And so for activity this upcoming summer, that's really what we anticipate starting to happen. There's a lot of the road work will start occurring this summer. So to dive in a little bit more and to kind of recap a few things you've already said, just kind of what you can expect to see in the landscape this summer. As Caleb already said, if we move forward with prescribed fire, which again is completely contingent on weather conditions, we have what we call a burn plan. And the burn plan is incredibly strategic with when we can move forward with implementation of a prescribed fire. That's based off of local conditions, based off of regional conditions, and based off of national conditions, what's going on with fire suppression throughout the country. So there's a lot that goes into that. If we do move forward with implementation of prescribed fire, you're definitely going to see smoke. You'll see smoke during the active part of the day when we're burning. And then we anticipate during the evening when the density of the air changes, you're going to see some settlement of that smoke coming down into the valley floor of Bozeman. So you will certainly experience some smoke during that prescribed fire operation. We anticipate that to be a really short duration. And that's one of the benefits of doing prescribed fire under these type of conditions, is that we can control that, we can minimize the intensity and the duration, which is much better than the type of smoke we're going to experience in late August and September, where we can't maintain and control that. So you'll definitely see some smoke. You're going to see a lot of crews on the landscape. You're going to see Forest Service firefighter crews. You're going to see some of our local county partners helping us support some of our prescribed fire. As we move forward with implementation of the small diameter thinning, as Caleb said, there's going to be hand crews with chainsaws, so you're going to hear a lot of noise. We do have treatments planned right off of the Leverage Gulch Trail. And so when you're enjoying that trail this spring, as the mountain bike season gets going, you will hear chainsaws, you will see crews, you'll see trees starting to get removed and piles starting to be created, or fuel starting to be kind of scattered out. And then when the conditions are right within the next year or so, we'll actually come back and do prescribed fire there as well. So you'll certainly see a lot of activity in that Leverage Gulch area. The last thing I'd touch real quick on upcoming activities this summer, there is the potential for some types of short-term closures on the landscape. It really just depends on the timing of our activities and the location. If the prescribed fire happens to occur in an area that we know there's going to be a lot of public use after the gate opens May 16th, then there is the potential we would do a very short, concise area closure to try to keep public out of our active burn area, first and foremost for public safety. And so you'll hear more about that if we do move forward with the closure. Any of our activities you're going to hear, you'll see news release and updates on our social media sites. And then there is the potential for closures as we move forward with other projects on the landscape. But as of right now, we don't anticipate closing the Leverage Gulch area. The only area that's kind of an interest for this 2021 season is our prescribed fire. Another activity that's occurring within the project area is our mutual partnership support with the city of Bozeman. And so on that note, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Brian Heaston with the city of Bozeman.
Thanks, Corey. Good evening, everybody. I'm Brian Houston. I'm the Senior Water Resources Engineer with the City of Bozeman. I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about the collaborative effort and the work that's occurring in conjunction with the U.S. Forest Service BMW project on City of Bozeman property. Work on City of Bozeman lands will be a city-led effort. Anticipate work to begin on phase 1 of the project this summer, likely to begin in July. Phase 1 of the effort is large diameter fuel removal using conventional ground-based equipment, which you'll see a little bit more here in subsequent slides. That work is anticipated to begin in July and will wrap up by the end of September. Following on the heels of the phase 1 effort is phase 2 of the city's sourdough fuels reduction project. Phase 2 also consists of large diameter fuels thinning. However, the method of thinning will be to utilize helicopters. Helicopters avoid the need to cut in new roads on the landscape, and is a bit gentler method of removing the heavy timber from the land. Phase 2 of the project is going to follow along the heels of phase 1, hopefully beginning in October and wrapping up by the end of the year. Phase 2 will call for a temporary closure of the Sourdough Canyon Trailhead. That closure is anticipated to last approximately 4 weeks in time, weather dependent. And the closure is necessary for public safety purposes. The helicopter will be operating on the east side of Sourdough Canyon during that period, and we'll be flying large diameter logs over the trail to a landing area. Then all of that timber needs to be hauled out of the drainage on Sourdough Canyon Trail itself. So that will call for approximately a 4-week closure. Subsequent to the commercial activities that are occurring this year, the city will move into phase 3 of the project. That calls for small diameter thinning utilizing hand crew treatment methods using lock and scatter and hand piling them down fuel. So once the material is piled, there will be a subsequent burning effort that will occur. Phase 3 of the project consists of approximately 200 plus acres of small diameter thinning, and that will span operating seasons in 2022 and 2023.
All right, thank you, Brian. So a couple last things, and we're going to be moving to kind of a close up and open up for Q&A. We just wanted to show a few pictures of the type of equipment you may see this upcoming summer. As Brian said, the city of Bozeman has planned helicopter treatments. So obviously, there's a picture there on your screen of a helicopter with some logs coming through the air. The National Forest, we have helicopter treatments planned on National Forest as well. We don't anticipate those treatments to start until 2022 or potentially 2023. That's part of our treatment as well. On the landscape, you'll also see on your picture, this is a Skyline yarder. It's a type of logging equipment that's used with cables and grapples to kind of grab logs and to move them up to the road. And then, of course, with our prescribed fire activity, you'll certainly see some fire engines in the landscape. And a couple other pieces of equipment. This is a faller buncher and a skidder. Again, these are used for ground-based logging activities. You'll see this type of equipment as we implement the project. And then another piece of equipment you'll see, we don't have a picture of it, it's just going to be a log truck. As we move forward with implementation and we start removing some of the larger diameter trees from our thinning activities, they will be coming down the Mosier Road, coming out Highlight Canyon. The city of Bozeman has planned activities on the city of on Bozeman Creek, Sourdough Road. You'll certainly see log trucks moving through the area as well. So to kind of recap what we've discussed, on your slide right now is just a kind of a recap of some of the dates we anticipate work to occur. Again, we plan on some of our hand crew chainsaw work happening as early as as June, kind of going through August. If we get the right conditions, we have prescribed fire planned really today through the middle of June. That's kind of the window we're looking at right now. And then you'll see some heavy equipment with City of Bozeman activity, as well as some road work occurring to help support some of the larger diameter thinning on national forest land. So, how you can help if you're asking that question. The first would be just, I ask for some patience. I most certainly, we recognize that this is going to be a big change in the landscape. We haven't had this scale of fuel reduction project in quite a while, in close proximity to Bozeman at least. Throughout the state we have it, but not kind of this close to the community. So be patient as we're moving forward with implementation. It will take some time for some things to recover. For example, the roads that we decommission, it'll take 1 to 3 years for those to kind of recover. We decommission them, we recontour them, we put native grass seed back down. And so when, within the first 1 to 2 years, you'll definitely see those type of activities in the landscape, but over time, those things will recover. Same with our piles that we're going to burn. You're going to see some really large piles in the landscape, and we're going to burn those and consume the fuel that's in those piles. And then over time, that burned pile footprint will recover. You'll see native grass seed starting to come back. So we'll just take some time for some things to recover. Obviously, you're going to see a lot of activity. I ask for you to please try to be cautious when you're accessing national forests, especially when you're driving on roads. There's going to be log trucks hauling down, and so just try to give some more time, give some more space as you're enjoying national forest lands. And then as we move into kind of the last slide here, we have this great website that is combined with the City of Bozeman. It's bznwatershed.com. And it's a specific website built just for the BMW project. And we're going to try to really keep it up to date throughout the entire implementation of the project. And so if you're looking for kind of day-to-day updates, feel free to go to that website. You're able to actually log on and provide your email and contact information to get frequent updates just automatically sent to you. If you have questions or want more information about the purpose and need, some of those watershed reports, the analysis, all of our Forest Service documentation, there's links on this website where you can find that. And so it's a great opportunity to find kind of a clearinghouse of all the things related to BMW. So on that note, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up and open it up to Q&A. If you have any questions, again, please do drop your questions in the comment box, and we'll do our best to answer. And as of now, it sounds like we do not have any questions. So we'll give it a few minutes just to see if there's a few things that pop up. And as we're waiting, I will definitely take this time as an opportunity to give a brief update on some other projects in the Highlight Creek watershed. We have a soil stability project that's going to start within the next week or two in Lower Highlight, just above the gate. So you'll see some heavy equipment there. And then we also are going to move forward with the construction and the paving of the Upper Highlight Road along the reservoir. That project will start later this summer, so you'll see those activities as well. And it sounds like we do have a question.
Yeah, so the first question is from Pat Craig. And what happens to the felled trees removed from the forest? Where do they go?
Great question. So great question from Pat. So the question, to recap, in case you couldn't hear, what happened to the trees that we cut? Where do they go? And so a couple things. Trees that we cut that are in a smaller diameter, they're of no commercial value. They're staying on the forest. We're going to, as Caleb said, cut them in kind of a lob and scatter, as in we're going to just place them throughout the understory, and then we may come back and broadcast burn them. Or we'll do small piles and we'll burn those piles. So eventually those trees get consumed by our prescribed fire activity. Trees that are of larger diameter and have the potential for commercial value, those are going to get hauled out on a log truck and they're going to go to a local mill and they'll be used for those type of purposes. I think perhaps there was a second question. Nope. Okay. And if you have any questions for Caleb or Brian, they're both here, so they can come up as well. I'll answer any questions.
So where will the logging truck traffic go to? Specific towns or towards a specific gateway?
So the question specifically, where are the log trucks going? And so the commercial activities on our thinning of our larger diameter, that's going to be RY lumber, RY timber, RY timber. And as of now, I anticipate them taking that material to their Livingston mill. We don't have a specific operation plan at the moment, so I'm not able to provide more details until we get that. But of course, when we do get that information, we'll be sure to relay that to the community. All right, well, we're hearing none or no additional questions, so I'll kind of start wrapping us up. Again, we just can't say thank you enough. We really appreciate you taking the time this evening to engage with us. Sounds like maybe we do have another question. Perfect.
Yeah, so where can private landowners learn more about the defensible space?
Great question. Thank you so much. So the question is, where can private landowners find more information about defensible space? And specifically, I think in regard to maybe mitigation activities that you can maybe take right now. So there's a few local sites. Primarily, you want to work with Gallatin County, as well as the Department of Natural Resources with the state of Montana, so the DNRC. We have some information available that I think we could probably provide a link in the chat box. But you'll want to reach out to some of those local agencies. The NRCS, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, they also have programs to do fuel reduction work on private land. And we share an office here with the NRCS. And so you can call that local office. They have a variety of programs to move forward with fuel reduction work. I really do appreciate that question. As we discussed it with Bridger Foothills Fire, the time really is now to move forward with mitigation work. If you wait or we wait until the fire, then we waited too long. And there are certainly some great opportunities that you as a landowner can do right now to help provide more defensible space, to help provide protection to your property, and even simple things like cleaning your gutters as we get into the fire season, removing any burnable material, like maybe you stack your firewood next to your house. Go ahead and remove that firewood away. If you have a barbecue or anything that may combust or turn into an active flame source that's close to your home, please do go ahead and remove those from the structure. And so again, Gallatin County, DNRC, the state of Montana, and the NRCS are some great opportunities to seek more information, as well as opportunities to implement some mitigation options on your property.
All right. The next question we have from Chaucer is, will the logging trucks be asked or required to not use air brakes?
At this, through the National Forest, at this time, I think the answer is no. That will not be a requirement. We do have a requirement that they cannot haul on weekends or major federal holidays, and so there will be no logging, no hauling activities on those days.
All right, and then another question from Jenna. Will you be able to inform public before you start laying for prescribed burn, and how much notice will they get before you start?
Yeah, great question. And so to recap the question, what kind of notification will we do with our prescribed fire program? So we are wanting to be as early as we can, and we do see some windows maybe in the next kind of 4 to 6 weeks. And so tonight is actually kind of part of a pre-notification. We're wanting to let the community know that we're looking at that 4 to 6 week window. We are sending out additional information to local private land owners, sending out to some of our partners, and really trying to get the message out as much as possible. The day of or the actual window, it's always really hard to predict exactly the day you're going to get those weather conditions that Caleb talked about. So typically that's about a 24 to 48 hour window in advance. And so we would anticipate that, best case scenario, 2 or 3 days before we plan to do prescribed fire, we will have another press release or news release. We will reach out. We have a very specific stakeholder list. So if you are a specific partner or close proximity to the prescribed fire, we will be reaching out directly to you. But again, we'll be sending out notifications through all of the media outlets that we can utilize to help get that information out.
So we have one more question from Pat. And do you know what happened to the TV at the top of Kirk Hill Trail?
Yeah, great question. So Pat's question is, do we know what happened to the TP on top of Kirk Hill Trail? And the answer is no. I've hiked up there dozens of times and seen it every time I go. And within the last month, in fact, the community told us about it, that it was removed. So I don't know what happened to it, and I don't know who removed it.
That's all we have for questions at the moment. Crystal did also share the DNRC link.
Oh, perfect. So real quick, Crystal with the DNRC, who's helping support some of that education outreach and opportunities for mitigation on private land, she shared that link on the chat box there. So we'll make sure if you can't see that we'll get that released as well. But Crystal's a great resource with the DNRC. So thanks, Crystal. All right, we're seeing and hearing some silence, and so I'll attempt to kind of close us out again, but don't hesitate. I mean, continue to bring those questions forward. And on that note, if you think of a question an hour from now, tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now, we don't care. Get a hold of us. The best contact information is going to be on that bznwatershed.com because then that message can go to both the Forest Service and the city, and we can make sure we get you in touch with the right contact. Again, I just can't say enough. I really appreciate the time this evening as we move forward with this really important project. And again, any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you very much.